everybody. My name's Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. Well, you know, here we are again. And here we are again, and if you watch the news, almost any day, I mean, we've done literally hundreds of shows now, and any day you watch the news and there are things happening that are unbelievable in the intensity of the disharmony, of the craziness. I mean, today, and it could be a lot of days, there were suicide bombers, there were bombs dropped, there were rockets shot out of helicopters, there were beheadings, literally beheadings on the internet in a sense. And somehow we go on in this. And somehow we almost get used to it. And yet, in our hearts, in our deepest part of our beings, we know, every one of us, every race, religion, age, color, creed, sexual preference, all the things that we think separate us, we know as human beings, as fellow human travelers on this incredible planet Earth, that the love is here. And we're here as a Bridging Heaven and Earth, as a show with everybody associated with, to once again announce that the love is here. And the connection between us is so much greater, is so much more vast than what we see as the differences that create these disharmonies, that end in the beheadings, in the suicide bombers, in the wars and the devastations and the ethnic cleansings and the holy wars. The love is here. We all know that the love is here. Whatever religion we follow, if we don't follow, we know in our hearts that there is an energy, call it God, call it truth, call it the life force, that connects us all, that connects us to every being on this planet, that connects us to the planet itself. That is the true reality. That is that connection, is that essence of what everything and every one of us is. And we also know that it's time and time and time again that that's where our focus goes. That we can't keep focusing on the differences. We can't keep focusing on the illusion of differences. The love is here. God is here. Each one of us. On the Bridging website, we are all made of love, God is love, and we are God. And that is, in essence, the truth of this life. And that's what we're here to learn, all of us, every race, religion, color, country. The differences are minute in the scope of the vastness of the love of what we are. So again tonight, people have made tremendous effort to come and share their love and their gifts and their recognition of that oneness, of that connection, of that vastness, of that love with us here and with you in the audience in front of your TVs. John English is a spiritual teacher, he's a shaman, he's the author of an extraordinary new book called The Shift, An Awakening. And he travels the world doing workshops on destiny, dreaming, protection, and karma. And basically, his life is in every moment of his being to vibrate that connection, to vibrate that joy, that love. And he drove 20 hours back and forth to share that with us, and we're just delighted and honored to have him with us. And we also have, as we normally do, 2 extraordinary videos from old friends of the show that we've showed these, you know, back couple of seasons ago, these twin flame videos of Rebecca Hilton and Wen Bowley, two beautiful, beautiful people, and extraordinary videos. So, you know, what are we going to focus on? Where is our attention going to go? We know where it needs to go, every one of us. And it's time. So, okay, join me in a short meditation, and then John's going to be with us. We'll see the videos. And again, it's an invitation, it's an opportunity to recognize, to remember, to experience the depth, the vastness, one more time, one more way deeper. So please join me in a short meditation. Hi, thank you. So remember, the love is here. Don't forget that. The love is here. So we're going to start tonight's show with a music video by Twin Flame, which is Rebecca Hilton and Wen Bowley. They wrote it and performed it. It's Peaceful Warrior.
We will rise again.
Hi, we're on the set with John. Welcome, John. It's great to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Alan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's great to be here.
So, you have an interesting story. You wrote this new book, The Shift and Awakening, but the backstory of how it came about. Why don't you tell people? I think they'd be really interested in how that came to be.
Yeah, I'd love to. A friend of mine and I made a commitment to embark on a quest to completely eliminate fear from our lives.
Fear.
Yeah, completely. And 2 weeks.
And what was the backstory to that? I mean, did you both feel that there was a tremendous amount of fear, moving your lives and governing your lives?
Yeah, we both felt there was a tremendous amount of fear moving our lives and governing the planet, basically. And we saw how it's used on so many different levels to control us in one way or another, to get us to buy something, to get us to vote for someone. And we just decided it would be a good thing to do.
You had enough.
Yeah, we'd had enough. And we saw how much it controlled us, so we decided to see if we could eliminate it. And 2 weeks later, a shaman showed up in my life and began to train me. He trained me for about 6 months and then sent me off to learn with his teacher, Alberto Villoldo of the Four Winds Society. And at the beginning of my training was when I had a dream, like in a mystic trance, that became the novel The Shift. And that's kind of the story behind it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, when you talk about the shift, what exactly are you talking about? I mean, what shift needs to happen away from fear? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the shift is about the oneness that we talk about and that your program's about. The oneness of consciousness, each one of us being a part of all that is. Embodying that, like many of us do, and that moves into the American political structure where it could benefit millions and millions of people. So that's what the novel The Shift is about. It's about the power of one person with impeccable intention. Taps into that lives within each one of us and changes the face of the planet, basically.
And the awakening is to that oneness, that realization of the connectedness between us all. And
the awakening is to the oneness and connectedness of us all, and that is our fear that keeps us separate. That we look at each other as separate from one another, rather than a part of the one whole, the one spirit that many of us call God.
And what are the ways that we can, as a species, eliminate those things, eliminate the recognition or the weight we give the seeming differences?
The first thing that I had to do is I had to own how much fear motivated me, how much it ran my life, how many decisions I made based on fear rather than love. And I believe that all things come down to either fear or love, one of the two. You can track any action back to those. And then own that. And
when you say own it, meaning just take responsibility?
Yeah, take responsibility for how much it actually really runs your life. And then by owning it and embracing it, let it teach you so that you can transcend it. And then when you transcend it, then you can open up to the oneness. I tell people that they are so beautiful and so powerful that when they see it for the first time, when they even get a glimpse of that, they will turn away and say, oh no, that's not me. But that's who we all are. And
why do you think that the human species, or a great portion of the human species, has gotten to the point where that incredible part of themselves, if you could call it a part, just to use words, is almost less familiar? I mean, what was the transformation from, or is that what the experiment here is like? I mean, why don't you talk about that?
Well, yeah, I believe that that's what the experiment is here about, and it's a matter of programming. We are programmed at so many different levels of our culture, from the time of birth until we decide that we want to embark on the journey up the hill, so to speak. And that fear keeps us in that place of separateness. So it's, like I said, it's, owning that and then moving and then committing to transcending it. And I think that that's what we're doing here. We're getting back to that realization. And when you decide to make that journey to oneness, to that you're all
to the recognition,
the recognition that you're all that ever was and ever will be, then you go through a period where you shed that programming. And in my shamanic lineage in the South, we start by shedding our past and our programming. And that's what we need to do. We need to shed our past and our programming and look at things with new eyes. We've been trained for millennia to look at separation, and fear has been used to control us. So it takes a commitment, a real commitment to move into the oneness.
And when you talk about your shamanic tradition or shamanism, why don't you define that if people are unfamiliar with it?
Well, I was trained in Peruvian shamanism, actually Incan, the Quetero Indian tribe. When the Spanish came to Peru, the Quetero Indians, it was prophesied that they were going to come, and they went up into the mountains and didn't come down until the 1950s. Actually, they were the things of legend until the 50s, and they came down in the 50s to talk about what's going on the planet, environmentally and with the energy here. And that is why my teacher decided to study with them, because their culture was not trampled underfoot by Western civilization.
And so their connection to that oneness that we're calling was more pure, was more unsullied by the whole momentum of busyness and consumerism and world affairs and blah, blah, blah.
And Western civilization.
And Western civilization.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not trampled underfoot, and it was very pure, like you said. And people there were raised from the time they were babies in the oneness.
In recognition the spirit of, right.
To care for the earth. And one aspect in the shift that is it's about environmental caretaking. Looking at the earth is not separate from us. It's all a part of the one. And a lot of the indigenous cultures, don't view themselves as separate from the earth. And I believe that that's one of the problems that we have with our culture. And that's one of
our culture, meaning the Western culture.
Yeah, Western culture, yeah. And when we don't view ourselves as separate from the earth, we take care of it. We honor it. We walk in beauty. And the people in many indigenous cultures have been trained since they were little to walk in beauty, to take care. Everything matters. Everything's connected.
And we think, because of the Western world, because of some weird disharmony, that we have dominion over it and we could trample on it and kill the dolphins and whales if we need it for short term, or trash the forests or whatever. I mean, is that...
Yeah, that's one thing. And we're also taught that God is outside of us and not within. And when God is within me and within you and within every living thing, within everything, it sheds a whole new light and brings you into a whole new perspective on the way to treat things.
So in other words, our just perception of everything by just a change of perception would change how we manifest in it.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the aspects in the book also, is the politicians in this book decide that they're not going to attack their opponents. So when they don't attack their opponents, every attack launched against them is thwarted.
So in other words, let's just go back a step, because part of, in the text of the new book, the subtext is that a new political party's formed that, deals from that place of love and oneness, and not the separation, not the different parties, but all of us together.
All of us together. All of us in it together. And I see that this is what we're doing right here, right now on Earth. This awakening of oneness that we're all involved in has picked up speed and has really taken up a momentum that is incredible. I mean, people are waking up. As your show's expanded, people are waking up in incredible numbers, and they're looking around at the world that we've created, realizing that we do create it, and they're deciding to make some changes. And these changes are going to continue to accelerate. And it's up to us to manifest what we want.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier that, from this book, that there's been a movement to actually manifest a political party based on that, and it's starting to form in, states and cities all over the United States. Is that right?
A lot of interesting things have happened since I wrote the book, Alan. The book came to me in a dream in about 5 to 10 minutes or something like that. And I'd never written a book before, and I sat down and wrote and edited and published the book in about 1.5 years. And then things began to happen in my life. The first thing that happened is my life started to parallel the lives of the characters. So I thought this was kind of interesting. But then,
in what way? Why don't you take people through that?
Well, I would get messages in dreams, in meditation, on which way to move, on something important's coming up, so you need to spend all your time writing. So I would spend all my time writing and I wouldn't have any business. And then a chance meeting would mean that I met the editor, who would show up into my life and edit the book and allow me to pay him out of the future sales. That's the same way that I met my publicist. I knew that I was supposed to go to the DEA in Los Angeles, even though I didn't want to go.
Convention.
The book convention.
Right.
So that way, I started to get messages in dreams and messages in meditation, and because of my shamanic training, I trusted them and followed up on them. Then I wrote about the EPA administrator resigning, and then in real life, she resigned about a year after I wrote about it, for the same reason that I wrote in the book. Mm-hmm. So that one about made me fall off my chair, and that's when it really started to get interesting after that. Then, what the latest that's happened is a group of people from several different areas of the country are actually going to start the Centrist Party, which is the name of the political party in the novel. And they also have had people come into their lives, and someone's going to design the website and host the website for free. So there's all these connections being made. The book is a lot about soul memory. Wait a second, I remember this. I agreed to be a part of this before I was born. And people show
part of this transformation, part of this remembrance.
Yeah, part of the remembrance, part of the oneness, part of the transformation, which I believe is from this level of consciousness to the next.
And so you see, I mean, and the book came out, what, 6 months ago, 8 months?
Yeah.
And since that time, there's been a tremendous, like, outpouring of recognition in people's lives. Like, oh, I kind of remember being part of this.
People started to look at it like it wasn't a fictional story. And they were calling me, is this true? Is this really happening? And then it started to happen, and people started to call it faction. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I've ran into some really beautiful people across the country. At one of the first talks I was at, a man was touched by what I talked about and started to believe in. The book is about the possible, not the probable. And in that oneness, anything is possible. And he started to embrace the possible and believe in the power that's within him. And he sent out over 1,100 letters of recommendation to independent bookstores across the country, all at his own expense.
And he had no previous connection to anybody, never done this before. He just
decided that this was what he wanted to do, and that, like I said, he remembered that he was supposed to be a part of this, and spent more than I had spent on my whole advertising campaign to that point. And then I've had people start a Pay It Forward campaign. A couple from South Carolina bought 72 of the books and sent them out to everyone in their network, asking them if they were touched by the book to send it out to everyone in their network and then keep paying it forward. Well, when they went to the post office to mail out the books, there was so much energy present in what they were doing that they knocked down all the computers in the whole post office.
Wow.
There's just been one thing after another that's happened like that. People mailing the book across the country. So my publicist likes to say that she's never seen so much energy surrounding a book.
And you have a second one in your head.
I have a second one in my head. I have
a continuation of this.
Yeah, it's a continuation. I'm going to allow the dream to continue. And going to talk about forgiveness and America cutting the ties to its energetic past through forgiveness.
Okay, why don't you just define forgiveness the way you experience it or see it?
Well, the way that I see forgiveness is that it's more than I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, that was wrong of me. Forgiveness cuts the cords energetically that tie us to our past and allow us to transcend that which caused us to do whatever we needed to be forgiven for in the first place. So forgiveness is highly energetic. Highly energetic.
And it's the intention to forgive? I mean, how do you see that? I mean, describe how the process of forgiveness would take place.
Well, it's the intention to move forward unshackled from the past, in whatever form that might take. Guilt has been used.
It's the other side of fear.
Yeah, it's the other side of fear, and guilt is really an archer's term, which means to correct your aim. So that really got blown out of proportion. So forgiveness for me is about, again, owning. It all starts with recognition. recognition first. Recognition that there's a better way. I need to correct my aim. So I'm going to talk with whoever, I'm going to give it a voice to it if I can talk to whoever. I'm going to decide that I need to go in a different direction, which is all about moving into that one spirit that many of us call God. And the way we can do that a lot easier is to cut our energetic past through forgiveness. So it's a matter of intention.
And we were talking earlier today about that almost every path has some amount of what you call forgiveness, or you call cutting the ties to the past. How do we live in the moment? In the moment is where life is, we're not who we think we've been or who we think we could be, but how do we come to the recognition that in the moment we're God?
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little about that?
Well, for me, it had a lot about letting go of everything that I think I am. I'm not my job. I'm not the father, the husband, and just embracing the greatness of who we all are. One of my teachers told me that you can do almost anything in this world if you let someone else take the credit for it. And I found out that it's true. You can.
Yeah, well, then you stop taking the blame. So, I mean, you're there less. There's less of you to be, fussing around. And carry the weight of you.
I think it's interesting to note that all the majority of the spiritual traditions all talk about the way. Jesus talked about the way. The Sufis talk about the way. The Kabbalists, it's the way. It's the way up the one mountain, where at the top resides a lake that is the elixir of life. And when you get there and you bend a drink and you see the reflection of how great you are, everyone else who's there doesn't care what path you took to get there.
Right. It's all irrelevant.
You drink.
Right.
And there's a thread that goes through all the major religions that have.
Yeah, the root is always the same.
Yeah, it's always the same. It's the way. It's the way.
And it's interesting how we have holy wars over the slight differences that seem to come out of the same root.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me has always been like, what were you saying? You used an expression earlier that somebody said, like, how could it be when we're all so close or something? Do you remember that when we were driving over?
Oh, about how can we expect any different?
I'm not sure. We'll think of it or think of it at the break. But, is that same kind of thing? Is that, like I said at the open,
are between people that don't even know the mountain exists.
Right, and
alone that they want to climb, that it should be.
And what they see as differences are so minute, even here.
Yeah.
That it's shocking that we can have, the whole, the Jewish Mishigas about it, the whole craziness, the whole beheadings and holy wars and then killings and ethnic cleansings.
So what we have in common is all that is and beyond time and will never begin or end. And our differences are so minute in this world of form, it's hard to comprehend.
That we give so much weight to it. I mean, it is, how that, we talked about this earlier, what an incredible experiment it is, that so much vastness, so much love can see the differences and actually manifest actions based on those differences. I mean, that in itself is a miracle.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. So, but the point is to pick one path on the mountain and start climbing. Look for the one that's the rockiest and the narrowest and go straight up the hill. Those are the most fun. It's interesting.
Carlos Castaneda talked about picking the path with heart and following it to the end.
Yeah.
So he said that. All right, maybe what we'll do is do the other video. This is, again, Rebecca Hiltman Wen Boley of Twin Flame. It's called How Long. They wrote it and performed it. It's magnificent. How long?
If you would let your minds drift back in time to a critical turning point in human consciousness, a morning last September.
Hi, we're back on the set with John. So how do you see, that recognition building up steam? I mean, do you see it as a progression of little steps, or do you see, big on earth things happening that'll, shake people up, shake the foundations of things? Or do you see it as a, slow, natural kind of evolutionary process?
Well, I think it is a natural evolutionary process, but the steps are getting bigger, and they are picking up steam. Again, if God is within and we are a part of all that is, there's really no problem. It's a matter of coming into that recognition. So we're going to come into that recognition one way or the other. It can be as painless and as easy as possible, or it can be more painful. And the way what I'm creating, and we all have that power of the creator within, is I'm creating an awakening that is natural and progressive, that picks up speed, but that is beautiful and doesn't involve as much turmoil.
Yeah, turmoil is, creates a lot of turmoil.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what's going to happen on the global scale is the same as what's going to happen within. There's no difference. So you can as we all make our awakenings and are moving and embodying that we are all that is, then the global movement will be easier also.
And that's the intention, one of us at a time. Each one of us comes into a greater, more light, more love, more understanding. Then all of a sudden the Berlin Wall falls, and who caused it? How did it happen? We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about like the 100th monkey, or that momentum building up, and then it looks like a quantum shift, but basically it was just, one increment at a time, one open heart at a time.
And when you think about it, that can really even help to open up your heart more, is that you're not responsible for your little part of the world, you're responsible for the all of it. And each...
And in a way there's less responsibility and more responsibility, like all those dualities.
Like all those things,
right.
Like everything with duality. And in the book I talk a lot about little acts of mercy for the earth and for other people, smiling at someone and really reaching out with your heart in the supermarket.
Be love in motion.
Be love in motion. Make your day a meditation. And reach out to strive to make a contact with everyone you meet. Be present with everyone you meet throughout the course of your day. It will completely change the way you look at life and the way you walk through it. And that can completely change the way we collectively walk through life. And that's the shift.
Because more than like the different manifestations, although they are of value, we were talking about this earlier, it's more the vibration of it. So even if you're meeting no one that day, but you're putting out that inclusion, that infinite quality, then it's just radiating out.
Yeah, it's just radiating out. And you will draw to you everything that you need to get rid of, so you can put that out all the time, and that's the rocky path.
That's what's happening.
And that's what we're doing right now. Yeah. We're on the rocky path some. But there's plenty of us who have made it to the top of the mountain. And I like to say these days, when you make it to the top of the mountain, you don't get to spend 20 years there like
in the
old days. Get back to chopping wood and carrying water. So
well, we were talking about this earlier, bridging heaven and earth, and the earth and the bridge and heaven, and how we're learning to navigate and go between, in a sense, between the world.
Yeah.
And comfortable everywhere, because where is there the separation?
We are not only where, but how heaven meets earth. And when we take on that responsibility, again, life changes and becomes beautiful, and we can walk in beauty. And one aspect I really like to focus in on is dreaming the world into being. I think that's the easiest way to create the world we all want to leave to our children's children and their children, is by dreaming it into being. It's very powerful because it removes us from our adult mind. And that's one of the reasons. And
we become childlike again, in the sense of
innocent, and in that
pure, right?
Pure in our power. We become the meek that will inherit the earth.
Not the weak, the meek.
The meek,
right?
Big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah, powerful, very powerful. And so that's why so many of the indigenous cultures practice dreaming and dreaming the world into being. Because they knew they know from experience that that's the easiest way for us to create, to manifest in this world. So if we want to be having shows like this 200 years from now and on an earth that's more beautiful than the one we live on now, it's possible if we accept responsibility and dream it into being.
And why don't you talk about the process of dreaming it into being? How would, you know, the millions of people watching going, yeah, gee, it's a good idea, John. How do I do it from this moment on? So why don't you help us all out there?
Well, like with the book, what I did is I received this dream about how things could go completely different here right now. And I just began to focus on that dream and daydream about it and think about and visualize the kind of world that I wanted to leave to my children. And I know they're going to want to have children someday, and what my grandchildren would want to inherit. And I was given a dream about it, how it could specifically, you know, the shift could move into the political structure. And I just began to dream about that happening and tap into the energy of that dream, the excitement, the passion of it. And then in doing that, I tapped into where that field exists outside of time. And then it started to manifest. And that's why I believe that all these things are happening, like this new political party and people saying, why can't we have these things? Why can't we have a beautiful environment and a thriving, sustainable economy? There's no reason we can't. Why can't we have a tax structure that makes sense? You know, all these other things. Why can't we use the love that we practice in every other place in our lives in that arena also? I just tapped into the dream and began to visualize it. And one of my favorite ways to do it is drive along in my car and listen to my favorite music and dream about what I want to do in my life. I used to drive along in my car daydreaming about being on TV shows like I'm doing right now.
Wow, was it like this?
Yeah, it was just like this.
Wow.
So
what
it
a
really
dream
works.
that was.
Yeah. It really works. Very powerful.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because you line up with your intent and then there's no separation.
Yeah, there's no separation. Yeah. And it's fun to dream. It's fun to, you know, to return to being a child where anything is possible. Almost anything.
Well, it's interesting that we've talked about this so many times in the shows that, you know, we have so much reason about that this works because of this and, you know, that this fits in because of this. And then we forget that we're hurtling through space on a ball and almost nothing really makes sense. I mean, it's completely unreasonable, the whole thing of it, the whole experiment of it. So then we pick this piece of infinity out, we cut it out and say, well, this is reasonable. It's like, under what theory? Only because we cut it out. Yeah. And we said that there's an end, a beginning and an end, and there is none in the sense of our understanding of it. So, but you know, it's interesting, you were talking earlier, and sometimes, you know, people in the spiritual path or people shaman, you know, have a thing with that passion is bad or fire. And I know that, you know, you don't necessarily think that one way or the other, but that there is something to be like passionate about your dream, passionate about your life, passionate about every breath of your life. Why don't you talk about that a little?
Well, through your passion, you can direct the creative energy towards your dream without having to get in between your ears to do it, where you drain your power.
The fire of your being.
Yeah, the fire of your being and your passion can ignite is the power behind your dream. It's a way to tap into the power of your being and fuel your dream without having to get in between here, because as soon as we get in between here,
the reason and the duality just starts making us crazy and making us afraid and making us undecisive or indecisive. What are the decisive words?
Yeah. We just jump.
We're ready.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're just born again in every moment, not in a religious sense, but in a consciousness sense.
Yeah.
So every moment is fresh, and we don't have a thing, we're not limited by what we think we've done before, by the type of person we think we are, but in that moment, we're God and we're infinite in that way. And that includes everything and everyone.
Yeah. One of the things that we do in the shamanic training is we track our own death. So,
well, yeah, describe
yeah,
that.
we track our own death, the day we're going to die, who we're with, what are we doing, how old are we?
Is it in the next
death
20
also?
minutes? No. Because if we have a death on the show, I'd like to know a few minutes in advance.
I'm going to make it for dinner.
Okay,
but,
good.
So that on the day you die, you get up and you say, oh, it's a little cloudy in Santa Barbara today, but it feels good. I wonder if the sun is going to come out this afternoon. So you appreciate each moment.
Right.
So,
I mean, I've always talked about that in a way, no one's afraid of death. It's just we're afraid of life. Because if you're alive in every moment, then soon, one moment you're not in that way, not in a physical form. But it's, because we don't know how to live, is that we don't really know how to die. It's just we don't know how to do any of it in a way.
Well, when you commit to being alive in every moment, it takes courage. It takes courage. It takes a commitment, but it gets easier and easier.
The momentum does build.
Yeah, the momentum builds to the point where you know when you're not there anymore and you want to get back there immediately.
Because it feels a lot different, it feels a lot heavier, and it doesn't feel as good. To be in the fear and in the duality and the separation as the experience of the oneness, the experience of the connection.
Yeah, that's what we're all looking for, all of us with all our pain and suffering.
And all our religions and countries.
We're all looking for that oneness. We're just looking for that oneness.
That recognition, that experience.
That recognition.
Because not the idea of it, because that doesn't get you anywhere. But the real
experience of it, which is what I love about the shamanism, because it's an experiential path. And it's time for that. It's time for us to allow, who have been living that way, to dream it moving into all aspects of our culture. Use our power, tap into the passion that we have for future generations, and allow it to, dream it into all other aspects of our culture, so that we don't have to deal with beheadings anymore. There doesn't have to be holy wars. Boy, that's an oxymoron. These things won't have to happen anymore when we don't need it. And it's time for people of power like us to dream the beauty that we experience into all aspects of our world.
Well, I mean, I know you see it coming, and it's here in a way. The love is here.
Yeah.
And, more and more, I mean, we were talking earlier that, 25 times a year, I mean, extraordinary people coming from all over the world with basically in one form or another the same message.
Yeah.
That it's here, that it's happening, that it's either, people will come in with different stories, not a shamanic tradition, but a Buddhist tradition or a Hindu, it doesn't matter, a Jewish, it doesn't matter, or no tradition at all, and say the love is here. The love is exploding, the love is, and that's what's so fun and so exciting. And for us all to work together in that and collaborate. We talk so much about collaboration.
The light has come into the darkness, and the darkness can't overcome it. Doesn't say the darkness won't try. Doesn't say the darkness won't go down kicking and screaming. But again, that's up to us too. Because if we're all that is, what's the problem? I've traveled across the country talking with people. And as soon as I get done talking, the hands go up. Wait a second, how is this going to happen? Do you watch TV? I say, well, very little. I try to watch as little as possible. But yeah, I watch TV. And then I say, every mystic has talked about how God lives within, and points for all of you to go in that direction, to look within. Do you believe that's true? And people nod their heads. And then I say, well, then what's the problem?
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
Why can't it move into the Why can't it move into the political structures of the world? I don't see any reason why not.
It's only people.
Yeah, it's only people. And as far as I'm concerned, it's only a matter of time. And I'm on a tight schedule.
I know. You face death already tonight.
So I want it to happen soon. So that's what I'm dreaming.
Before dinner.
Yeah, before dinner.
Before we get to eat.
Before dinner would be good. I'll wait until the dessert, but...
You'll let it go.
Yeah.
The interesting part is, and we were talking about it again, we were talking about this earlier, about there's so much availability for the joy, for each of us individually to have that experience, to taste the water, and then to come together and do television shows, to do books, to do projects, movies, all the stuff that, are on earth to do, and we could do them together and collaboratively, without ego as much as possible, and just have that spirit, have that love, just take it.
Yeah, that's the joy of the child.
Right. Just
the
to
one
play
who
together.
knows no limit to his dreams, who knows no limit. And that's a beautiful place to be, where anything is possible. And what's interesting to me is we run into resistance to that. But I realized that any resistance I ran into that was just showing me that that's the way I needed to live.
More.
And I dreamed
Right.
a political party into being, which, interesting enough, is called the centrist party, which is about your center and about coming to trust, which is an aspect of oneness, which is an aspect of God. Trust, truth, words that still mean something.
Their meaning is taken, has gone through a few transformations. But the root, it's always the root of it is, that recognition, that love, that oneness, that God, and that's really, we want to get back to root. I think you were saying earlier that there's, basically one disharmony or one problem on earth. We could go down the road that all these things, the parties, the religions or whatever, but it's that we don't have, each of us individually and as a collective species doesn't have the experience of that oneness, that connectedness, and that from there all hell breaks loose.
Oh yeah, you can trace or track all our problems to separation.
To the experience of separation, to thinking.
To thinking that we are all separate, rather than we're all in this together. If I don't view myself as separate from you, I wouldn't cut you off in traffic. If I did, it would be an accident. And I would wave, sorry.
Right.
If we don't view ourselves as separate from one another and separate from the earth we rely on for sustenance, just allow yourself to imagine the possibilities.
It's not that we would never cut a tree down or never.
No.
It would just be we would do it completely differently.
Completely
Consciously and reverently and lovingly.
Yeah, so it's nothing.
Collaboratively in a sense.
Yeah, life feeds on life. That's just the
that's
nature. Just a reality of this realm.
Right.
That life feeds on life. So that's going to continue. We need to make our lives good food for God. Good food for God. And we can do that by not looking at each other as separate, that we are all one and in this together. And when we do that, then it's time for dessert.
Yeah, then we were saying that the motto of the show is, we do a live show, and so when we're doing it in the central coast of California, it's going out live.
Yeah.
And so, doing a live show nowadays, nobody does it because it's difficult and it's hard to do. And, but the crew loves doing it. They love the spontaneity of it. And then, we make tapes that goes out to all the other cities. But we say we do the best we can, then we go eat.
Yeah.
We make all the effort we can do and all the concentration, and then it's done. Might as well go eat and enjoy your dinner. So.
Yeah. So I've just been traveling the country and talking with people about, let's make it to the feast. We want to make it to the feast, and we want as many of us to be there as possible. So the table's been set. Let's just dream it into being and leave the separation and the ego and everything that gets in our way behind, as much as possible. And view that we are all in this together. Look at it from that perspective.
As a starting point, at least.
Yeah, as a starting point. That we're not separate from one another. And there's plenty to go around. And leave the fear behind. And making that commitment with my friend to leave fear behind was the single most important decision I've made in my life.
That opened the door, and then, doors started opening, and different things came into your life to just expand you further up and further in, to just bring all these recognitions and remembrances over and over and over, and deeper and deeper and deeper into your world, right?
Yeah. It opened up the doors and started peeling the onion that's John English, so that we could get to what was really there.
And once you get to what's really there, it's magnificent.
Oh,
it's the same as everyone.
It's ineffable.
It's the fantastic. So again, John, thank you. It was fantastic. So we're coming to the end of the show again. The love is here. If you think you're not it, look more, look deeper, look harder, look further, look deeper in, look something. Open your eyes, open your heart. You are that love, and we're all it. So again, we love you. Thanks for coming. Come again. You are the love. Good night. God bless you.